or Latinx, or living on the Upper West Side. We all casually assume everybody lives on the Upper West Side. No, they don't. We know that much. So we're going to be putting out a survey, and I want to encourage all of you to take it because it'll give us information that would be immensely valuable in helping with our programming. For example, do you have children at home? Should we be doing anything to cater to that fact? Should we be doing anything more family related? Do you have a spouse or spouse equivalent, and does he or she ride? That would be kind of handy for us to know. So when you see that survey, please take it. It will be tremendously useful to us. What else are we going to do this year? Well, the common theme is we're going to play it by ear. We're going to put out our schedule the way we do every year of all the things we mean to do. And we know that a lot of them, or at least some of them, won't get done, particularly in the early part of the year. So check back often, but at least you'll see our aspirations and what we're shooting for. Now, the question everyone is asking, will there be a SIG? The answer is kind of. There will be no A or A Classic. They have concluded, after much soul searching, that the need for pacelining and their reliance on particularly Metro North trains, as well as their practice of shuffling their groups each week, means that any A or A Classic would not be the A or A Classic they mean it to be. So those two are out, as is the C, because their leaders are not sure they can get the people and are not sure they're comfortable riding in close groups at this point. And there will be no D for the same reason there will be no A or A Classic. However, we are trying mightily to have a B, and that B will be a little bit smaller. It will probably be on the order of 100 to 110 people instead of a sellout limit of 180. We are looking at smaller groups and probably more of them. And it will be, unfortunately, at least for me, because it's my favorite part of the SIG, somewhat less sociable. We will not be able to do that wonderful first ride lunch, the final lunch/dinner at the depot, and I don't know what we're going to do about a graduation. I have a horrible feeling we're going to email you your certificates. But there will be a B in some form. Stay tuned. There may be a B15 this year. There may be a 19 as well. It all depends how many groups and how many leaders we can rope up, and we are still trying to recruit that. STSs, stay tuned. We're talking to them. I believe Felipe intends to do an A, and I don't know the plans for B or C. RSTS, I am told, I'll let Neil talk to the RSTS because he's on the schedule for tonight. And having saved what I had believed to be the biggest question for last, I will pass the baton back to Steve.
What's the biggest question?
Will there be a SIG? It is the thing everyone.
You already answered it. Oh, okay. Now I see what you're saying. All right. Yeah, so thanks for covering all of that. And thanks to everyone who is trying to step up and make this happen. It's such a big, important part of what we do, and getting people ready to participate in our weekend rides program is to expose them to the different riding styles, skills, the love of riding that you get from the people you meet in the SIG. I, as the programs director, a number of you have encountered me hosting these monthly get-togethers on Zoom, where I'm trying to pull people of interest to our community to talk about matters of interest. I guess I'll give you just a little bite-sized resume. I am an attorney who represents cyclists who are struck by motorists or who wipe out on road defects and want to go to court or otherwise pursue and resolve a claim for damages. I am a cycling activist. I've been involved with Transportation Alternatives now for about 15 years, on their advisory council for 10. I'm also serving on the board of Bike New York and of New York Cycle Club, and formerly of the Five Borough Bicycle Club. And I'm deeply involved with lots of different biking interests here in New York, trying to promote the cause of cycling. Did I mention Streets PAC, the Cyclist Political Action Committee that can provide you with an outlet for influencing your local government in this upcoming 2021 municipal election cycle, even if it's not something that you could thoroughly and comfortably discuss in the context of a group meeting of a 501c3 nonprofit organization, such as the New York Cycle Club. But look it up, Streets PAC. We're going to be very active this year, and we're doing everything that we can to try to elect officials who will keep our streets safe and pleasant to ride on. I have definitely been challenged by the pandemic in trying to create an entertaining and satisfying monthly meeting program. And part of the challenge has been that I've been particularly busy because of some of the pandemic related demands on me. So my apologies in advance if sometimes the advertisements for our monthly meetings have not gone out timely. My New Year's resolution is to try to have them go out more timely after this month. The questionnaire that Peter mentioned, I think, is excellent. It was designed by, I think, by one of the board members, Kim, who unfortunately isn't going to be able to make it. But it's wonderful, and I specifically asked her to modify it so that if you had any proposals or suggestions for our monthly club meeting, which is this Zoom meeting I've been hosting, please, by all means, let her rip. You can also just speak up at the end of this sort of meet and greet session, which is, I'm sure, going to be over before our allotted time. And it's just a shame that we can't personally connect the way we used to with our monthly meetings at Connolly's and some other venues in the past. But we just have to do our best. So anyway, it's my honor to be in this role, and I'm looking forward to hearing any suggestions you might have about how I might do it better. I think Ed is next on the face chart, so let's go to him. Except he's muted.
No longer muted. Good evening. My name is Ed Delk, and I've been a member of the club since 2011. Happy to represent you on the board as secretary. I joined the club as well as the board because of people like Neil Weissman, Ed Fishkin, and my friend Yves Denizet. Each of these cyclists is passionate about our sport, a really nice person to hang with, and someone I trust out on the road. We all love riding outdoors, exploring new places, and taking on the physical challenge of conquering long distances and the occasional steep hill. We're also kind of geeky about bike tech. Personally, I've extended my enjoyment of cycling through the club to the point where I actually watch and follow professional cycling. And I've even gotten my 14-year-old twin daughters into the sport and into our club as junior members. One of the best parts of my life, honestly, is riding with my friends in the club and riding with my daughters. As a board member, I'm passionate about increasing the availability of club resources to its members, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Health protocols and social distancing rules have reduced the number and variety of group rides and other in-person events for our club. But I believe this is a great time to be in NYCC. No other group in New York has the resources of our club, ranging from our route library, interesting content on the website, and the huge knowledge base of our members. And one of my goals for the board is to make our user content much more available and discoverable to members. For example, I've advocated for a featured ride section on our website to highlight local routes that people can take that begin and end in New York City and don't require the use of subways or other public transportation. These routes could be sourced from members who've taken them during the pandemic, as well as from our route library. I've also recommended that the club publish a progressive series of local routes for members who want to improve their strength and endurance through a graduated training program over several weeks or months. It would be similar to the SIG or STS, but it would be something that people could pursue independently outdoors or in small groups or pods. And this is something that could be on the website all year round. So it's something people just take up as something they want to do. The last thing I'd like to note for now is my appreciation for the small group of club members I've been riding with nearly every weekend since the COVID-19 pandemic began in March of last year. They include Daria Amon, Kim Blanchard, Griselda Sanchez, and Holly Campbell. Almost a year ago, we were all getting ready to join Neil's RSTS when the lockdown happened. But we wanted to keep going, and we did, all through the spring, summer, and fall, including doing our own century ride together. We kept safe, kept each other motivated, and kept getting in those miles. And for us, miles equaled smiles. So for all of you, I hope the board can make 2021 a really great cycling year in and around New York City for everyone.
You're muted, Steve.
I actually have no idea why the grid is set up the way it is. I mean, Peter should be first because he's the president, but in any event, we're going in that order. So Jerry Ross next.
I'm Jerry Ross. My title is VP Rides. And following from Steve's point, as far as the quote unquote hierarchy in the bylaws goes, I'm number 3. Peter's number 1, Steve number 2, 3 goes on like that. That became real about 2, 3 years ago when, very sadly, Eden Weiss, who was president at the time, collapsed from a stroke and we could not serve it. He happened to have 2 jobs, president and Steve's job, director of programs. The way the bylaws are written, I became not the acting president until the next election. We have very strange bylaws, and we have a president that has a normal kind of job description. He does whatever nobody else wants to do. And then we have, if he can't serve, or he or she, then the vice president of programs, which right now is Steve, then was Eden. He had both jobs. And I won't bore you with why that happened. Of course, he couldn't do both, so that falls on me. But the bylaws don't say I became, not me, but VP Rides became VP, acting president. I got to preside over the meetings, period. Full stop. That was actually a very cool thing because it allowed us to get used to working as a group rather than as a person in charge, everybody else kind of following along. And I don't want to exaggerate how important that was or not, but for several months till the next election, we were just basically, all I had to do was call a meeting order and shut up. And the more shutting up I did, the better. So that was then. But now, my job description in the bylaws is a little bit odd. Most of it's kind of dated. A lot of it's done by other people. If you look at it, I could do absolutely nothing and get by just fine. And that may be a game plan. But what I really do is a little different. What I see, and let me back up. I've been a member of the club since the early 90s. And I joined the club totally by accident. I was out on a ride in the middle of New Jersey with my then 11-year-old son, ran to a guy named Richard Rosenthal. And he looked us over, handed me a card and said, come to our next meeting, which was some bar down in the Flatiron District. So I was able to get an 11-year-old kid into a bar without being kicked out. And it went from there. And in those days, I did a lot of riding with my son. In fact, I take some small credit for Ed Delk's lovely daughters being junior members because I was the person who kind of created that concept 30 years ago, whatever. It's working great. Every once in a while, we have somebody whose children who want to ride with their father or mother. It's a great thing. It means you have a couple more years with your kid before he stops talking to you. And it's good for the club because it helps bring people into the club, stay in longer, do more. And one of my jobs as Vice President of Rides is to encourage rides, to plan. I don't plan rides, I do them. Other people do the hard work. And the other end of the spectrum, we have a race team, which not very many of us are involved in, but the people love it. And it's good for the club again, because it gives people a bigger tent into which to come in. So, but what is my real job? What I really do? And I have some notes here. Let's see. I guess I better not read all these out to you. But my biggest, most important job is supporting the ride coordinators. We have now 4 ride coordinators, the A, B, C, and D ride coordinators. They do the heavy lifting. They're the ones that deal with approving rides, not approving rides if it's necessary to do that. Unfortunately, that's a rare thing. And dealing with problem riders once in a while. And my job is to help them out, do whatever they need to back them up if they need backing up. Half the time they're backing me up. And that shows up in life sometimes, every once in a while. And when I bring these things up, keep in mind, they are rare events. I'll have to deal with a problem rider, a person who's unsafe on the road and endangers him or herself and other riders. That might require some letter writing, might require a meeting. I had to get involved in that maybe 2 times in 6 years. So just, I don't want you to think it's a big issue in the club, but when it happens, it's important. Another job I have is supporting leaders when they don't feel supportive. I said it wrong. When they talk to me instead of the ride coordinators. Ride coordinators, we have amazing ride coordinators. I've been at this job for 6 years, and we've had incredible ride coordinators through that whole period. I'm sure before I just didn't know them. And I'm looking at a couple of them now. I'm looking at Jim Finder and Linda and Colin, and I guess Mike's not here, but it's okay, Jim. I have more hair than you, so I can talk to you. But the point is, the ride coordinators, they're the real key leadership group of our club. Our club's about rides, and more rides. And all the other stuff we do supports that. The other thing I do a few odd jobs besides the ride coordinator backup, which is actually pretty easy because they're so good. And that is, I help out with the insurance issues because I'm a lawyer also. We have one of our diversity problems, we have way too many lawyers on the board. I counted 5. But I've had some background in insurance coverage issues, so I fell into dealing with that. We just have making a phone call to somebody getting an answer. It's really all it boils down to. And sometimes I get involved in establishing ride policies, and the bylaws say I'm supposed to make policies and get the board approval. It's not the way it works. We work as a team. So that when it comes up a ride policy, and the current one I'll come back to in just a moment, is e-bikes. What do we do about them? How do we deal with them, et cetera, et cetera. It's not about me. We have people not even on the board who know a lot more about e-bikes than I do. We have other people on the board and have firsthand experience with e-bikes, and once in a while they create an issue. So we work as a team, as a group, to figure out what do we need to do, if anything, and then present it to the whole board and have more discussion, more consensus building. And I think you should understand the way our board works. It's really a consensus group, not a 8 votes for, 7 votes against, the 8s carry. That rarely happens, and usually only in a formal way. And what else do I do? I get involved in other odd jobs. I helped out with the 501c3 effort, and I assisted with a couple years ago with a personal injury lawsuit. One of our club members had a collision with another club member, very badly injured, and one sued the other. We were brought in as a witness. We were subpoenaed, and I dealt with the witness aspect. So that's basically what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years, plus having a lot of fun with fellow board members and riding my bike and trying to get out there on the road. Right now I've cracked a bone, so I have to do it on my trainer right behind me. But I really want to be decent so I don't embarrass myself when the things come along. That's somebody has questions, that's all I have to say.
Before I take over, Jerry, there is a question that I think you might want to answer, and Might want to also ask you to broaden your comment about 501c3. You just slipped that in fast, and not everyone may know what the implication is for the club. So if you want to expand on that and also maybe give a preview of what we're thinking about in e-bikes, there was a question about that.
Okay, well, I'll cover 501c3 is easy because it's just a statute. It's technical. We were already organized as a not-for-profit corporation back in the 1970s. Neil, you probably remember the year. I don't. And I think it's 76. We were a C7. That category allowed us to be not-for-profit, but we still had, I guess it means we didn't pay income tax, so I'm not sure about that. But we weren't tax exempt. We had to pay sales tax and had to charge sales tax on stuff we sold and so on. And a couple of years ago, the Eventbrite people who were collecting our money for E&Y said, hey guys, you got to charge sales tax. And we checked the statute, and guess what? We're supposed to charge sales tax on our dues as well as our E&Y fees. And it was kind of, I'll use a legal term, oh shit. We better do something about it. So we applied for the 501c3 status, which is a full charitable corporation. And at the risk of boring you all too much detail, I'll shut me down if I need to. The 501c3 statute and the sales tax statute are identical words. Same guy probably drafted them both. And they say that you could qualify for that status if you give money to people. That's the traditional charity we all think and know about, the Ford Foundation or Carnegie or whomever. If you do education, if you support competitive sports, and a bunch of other categories that don't come close to us. Well, you start thinking about what we do as a club. Money, yeah, we give money to people. How much do we give away every year, Alan? $30,000 or $40,000 max?
Yeah,
more often. Not exactly life-changing amounts. They are for the people who get it, but they aren't for the world. Education. Start thinking about that. When I started running it down, the list went on and on and on. Ride library, that's education. SIGs, that's education. Ride leaders giving a little speech every ride saying, don't ride on the wrong side of the road and try not to run red lights, and please don't hit old ladies in strollers. That's education. It goes on like that. I mean, it's amazing how much education we really do just in the course of being a recreational bike club. And the final thing is supporting competition. And guess what? We have a race team. And we also have a team that goes to the Grand Fondo. That counts as competition. It's a little different style. We have a Zwift group that does competition on their computer. So we check all three of those boxes. This whole process is a matter of filling out a long form and checking little boxes. Check enough boxes, you get the status. So that's the backstory of the 501c3. And what allows us to do is we don't need to charge sales tax on our dues anymore. We don't need to charge sales tax on the jerseys we sell or the E&Y fee. And we don't have to pay sales tax on the stuff we buy. So if we buy some stuff for E&Y or buy some stuff for the newcomers ride at the L class, we just knocked 8% off the price. Not too bad. I think in round number of terms you came up with, that's worth maybe $15,000, $20,000 to the club, which is a significant percentage of our income. So that's the immediate short-term money value of being a full-blown charity. It also gives us some opportunities, like it makes it easier for people to support us financially, especially NY or anything you want to do, because they can now go to their charity budget, not just their promotion and marketing and being nice guys budget. And I don't think it changes any of what we actually do day to day at all. We still elect our board the same way we always did. We still do the same activities we do. As Steve pointed, we aren't supposed to get super political, so we can't go around talking about what's wrong with the current president or not wrong with him. That might get us in trouble. We can do it individually, so just take off my NYCC shirt and I can say whatever I want. And so that's more you want to know about 501c3. And the other question is e-bikes, and their situation is, it's interesting. We have several members who own e-bikes, and they fall into two, I'd say right now, I'll take the leap of saying extreme categories. Super experienced, terrific riders who are getting either old or maybe had a medical problem like a stroke and just can't do that 18 miles an hour up the hill anymore. and they get an e-bike. And one of the people I'm talking about is looking kind of bashful on the screen. And those people, when they come on a bike ride with their e-bike, we don't even know they're there. I mean, we know they're there. We don't know they have an e-bike unless they tell us. Or it's one of those big, ugly ones. And then we make them go get the pizzas for us. And the other extreme are the people who have more money than bike skills. They go to the bike shop and the guy sells them this super duper e-bike and it costs them $5 or $6 grand and it weighs about 60 pounds and they have no clue how to ride it. And we've had a couple incidents where that has been a bit of a problem. But the bottom line is e-bikes are here to stay. We may as well get used to that and we're going to have to deal with them. So then the question is, what do they mean on a ride? Take the easy one, a SIG. Do you want an e-bike on your SIG group where you're trying to teach people how to go up a hill on their own? Maybe not. So the current consensus is
Are we going to have an e-SIG? An e-SIG?
We could, if we get enough people, we'll probably have to have an e-SIG. You guys can all deliver pizzas all over town and we'll get points for it.
Whoever's speaking, you can volunteer. So run it.
I hear that e-cigs are just
I'll
as
put
unhealthy.
his finger on the club policy. If you bring something up, you're going to wind up being elected to run it. Now, Colin, we shouldn't say it. They won't bring anything up. But we might have to. We might want to have an group because there might be some special needs for them, like how to charge a battery on a hill 60 miles from home when there's when your flashlight went out. I mean, what do you do about that? And this business of rider training might have some quirks. We have to tell people, warn them, and we're writing a piece to put on the website. If you have an e-bike, you better know how to deal with it if the battery runs out because your rider might not know how to charge your battery on the fly. And that goes to more general things. You better know how to take your wheel off to change a tire if you get a flat because it might not be like an ordinary bike where you flip open it, you drop the wheel out, throw on a new tire and tube and off you go. And so there's things like that that are special to e-bikes. And then there's the business of, you're on a ride, we don't want you going at the leader just because you have a motor on your bike. And if you get lost with your going off with your motor, you're on your own. So anyway, the point is we're trying to deal with it, trying to face the fact they're here to stay. I mean, keep in mind, a couple of generations ago, somebody thought derailleurs were unfair and no good. What's true? Probably pre-World War II. I was just a small boy then. But
all right. And on that note,
answer the question probably way too much.
I'll say this, that I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say that if the club decides to have an explicit policy with respect to e-bikes, I think that there's going to be an opportunity for membership to comment and have input. So
one thing, Steve, to keep in mind, all of our policies, e-bikes are a good example. They're all projects in progress. Just because you write something out saying, here's what we think ought to happen, that doesn't mean that 6 months from now we're not going to change it. And it really is real with COVID, anything new, e-bikes. Most of us don't know much about e-bikes. We don't like being run down.
We just learned a lot. We just learned a lot. All right, Alan, I want to make sure everyone gets a turn. Thank you, Jerry.
So my name is Alan Friedman. I'm the Escape New York Ride Director. And this is actually my 10th anniversary of joining the New York Cycle Club. I did the CSIG in 2011. I bought the amazing kit that year, which I still cherish, the 75th anniversary. To my mind, it's still one of the best designs. I mean, I guess I could say last year's ENY design was the best, but reality is I think that year was the best. And then I got kind of lured into an organization that Steve mentioned briefly in passing. I became the communications coordinator for the 5-Borough Bike Club, and I kind of like their, I'll call it explore your city style of riding, which this club is going to be doing a lot more of too. And so I'm excited about that. Ultimately became president of that club, which I still am. This will be my last year doing that. And in 2018, right on the heels of unfortunately not being able to do my first BSIG, because I was traveling too much on business, and you can only miss 2. And I knew I was going to miss 4, so I couldn't start it and take the spot away from somebody else. I approached Peter and Jerry I hope you guys remember that fateful day in July of 2019 where I approached them because I had just heard that TA was doing the 30th and final century ride, and a lot of people were approaching me saying, hey, your club ought to get in and do that. And I knew that the Fibro Bike Club, it's a sweet, friendly club, but it doesn't have the same spirit of volunteerism as NYCC does. And so I approached Peter with the idea of maybe we could do something together, and the timing was appropriate because there was a bit of an issue, let's just put it that way, with a fellow doing marketing on ENY, and he says, well, if you want to learn how to run a big ride, why don't you understudy Mike, because he needs some help. And I had a tremendous opportunity. I'm glad I took it, because working with Mike was, for those of you who had the pleasure of doing it, was really special, and he was very effective at sharing with me what needed to be shared. And I know there are others who I have since picked their brains and been able to learn from. And I'm very glad I took the assignment, because the spirit of volunteerism in this club is great. And so we hit 2020, and my goal was just saying, hey, there's a great model here. It works. I just want to learn it, repeat it, right? And pass it along. And then Corona hit. Reality bit, and it bit very hard. In fact, we had made a decision that we could just pick up and leave, and the club is in a position to still make some of those donations that Jerry was talking about. But I felt like we did a mini survey of the people who had done the ride in the past, and we sensed there was still an appetite to do something. So we embarked and went down a path. Unfortunately, came up with a plan that had too much dependency on volunteers, and I think the community rightly said, hey, it doesn't feel that safe to be in large groups volunteering. And so even though we came up with a design that would have had less large group gatherings, still would have depended on too many volunteers. And so we midstream decided to cancel the ride. But in the process, our sponsors stayed with us. So thank you, Steve, who is one of our top sponsors, and Unlimited Bikes, and a couple other entities that gave us cash and in-kind donations. And this 501c3 now lets us take that and give a greater benefit back to our sponsors if they want to take advantage of it.
You're welcome.
And we wound up basically launching the program, getting about 225 people to sign up through Eventbrite, and then also launched an apparel line that was a little bit broader. So not just a jersey, but several jerseys and more, more different items. And we were able to raise the amount that the club was planning to give. So the club did not have to deplete its resources. We were able to raise that amount by a combination of the sponsorships, the donated registration. Some people rolled over to next year, about half. So we have about 100 people registered for a ride this year. And others, some took a refund. We gave everyone the options to choose. The apparel, we sold over, I want to say 175 pieces, I believe, of jersey material, and then some of the extras, additionals. And we ran a raffle. And the raffle also raised about $2,500 to $3,000. So all told, we're over 10 in proceeds that are going to be donated to the charities, which are I Challenge Myself, which is historically an entity we've given to and is kind of close to the heart of Ostroy, who remains our partner for apparel. And also, of course, Kids Ride Club, which, my predecessor speakers like Ed and Jerry and others, we've been involved in looking at our work with that group. And you'll see, I think, some great continued work with them coming up in the year to come and future years, we hope. So we're in a good position to do that. There's definitely an interest out there. There's a percentage of our community within the club and outside the club that are not comfortable riding during the pandemic, but there are a lot of people out there who are riding. A lot of the mass rides have not been able to run. They're all pushing themselves out into the fall. So I expect it to be a tight and competitive space. But the board meeting that was going to happen last week is going to happen tomorrow. And I'll be giving them an update on some ideas I have to kind of position us to do something that is, we have to plan for what we could potentially do in the context of a pandemic. I mean, it would be great to see that we could scale back up to the ride we're familiar with by September, but I wouldn't bet on that. I'd rather be surprised and do that then plan for it and have to cancel again. I am looking for some people who would like to get into learning about the ride, some fresh ideas to come and join the team. I have a good team that's coming together that has some experience and was very effective last year working with me. So they're continuing, but I'd like to get some new people. So if you're interested in learning more about Escape New York and running a large ride, and you have some ideas on how we can put it together safely in 2021, given everything that's going on, let me know, because we have possibilities. I don't believe in putting everything on one person's shoulder on a team, but rather building sub-teams to kind of work together to carry the load. And that's my goal, to try and scale down what we've typically depended upon in a volunteer community to get the ride to be able to run potentially this year. Having had success with the apparel line, I was asked by Peter if I'd consider, actually I offered Peter, and he let me take over the club's apparel as well. And so we're working on a plan that I think people will be very pleased to see. Our goal is to have a store and a product line. And one of the things I learned is that when you come to one design, it is impossible to please the board, to please the membership. There's always going to be constituents who love it, and there's going to be constituents who hate it. And in my mind, that's an opportunity, right? There's a way to satisfy more people, and that's my goal. So watch this space. I can't say too much because there's work to be done with the board and with my team, but I think you'll be excited by what's to come. With that said, I think I've covered what I wanted to say, except for to remind everyone what the ride is supposed to be about. And if we can't do these things and do them safely, we would cancel again. I have no, I'd love to run a ride, but if it's the wrong thing to do, and one of the other things, in addition to having great volunteerism in the club, the board it's an amazing group of people. I've really enjoyed the discussions, I'll call them that can come up, because this group really does look at all the angles and do what's in the best interests of the membership, and I appreciate that. Escape New York is first and foremost a fun, high quality ride. So if we can't do that and do it safely, we're not going to do something that people would look at and go, that wasn't that exciting. It's a celebration for our members, so we have to be in that mode. If things are going on around us and people are not well, we may not want to be celebrating too much. So hopefully we'll be celebrating the efficacy of a vaccine before too long. Like, I have a feeling in about 2 weeks, it's all going to get accelerated, right? And then we are a bridge to the cycling community. I'm amazed how many people in the club have told me that the way they found out about the club was by coming on an Escape New York ride, meeting people and learning about the club and then joining it. So it will continue to do that for sure. It's a volunteer opportunity for people to give back. And it's a source of funds. The 501c3, one of the reasons I wanted Jerry to go on about that a bit more is that we're one of the fundraising engines of the club. And while that's not what the ride's all about, it's one of the nice things that anything we do make on the ride, we give to these organizations who really appreciate it and actually really need it now with the pandemic more than ever. That's it for me. And I do welcome those of you who want to get involved, or even if you just have an opinion, never hesitate to share it, because it always helps me think through the big decisions that we need to make.
Thanks a lot, Alan. I mean, nothing could have been harder than to figure out what to do with the role in this year when we couldn't run the ride. And you did an amazing job of creating something out of nothing, in essence. So I'm sure ENY will live again. We're going to transition to the ride coordinators. We have a ride coordinator for each ride classification, if you will, A, B, and C. I don't believe that Michael Bernstein was able to make it tonight. So unless I'm mistaken, we're going to go to Colin Tabor, who's the B ride coordinator.
Great. Thank you, Steve. I am Colin Tabor. I've been the B rides coordinator for a year now. Just a little background as far as the bike club goes. I joined in 2013. I just missed the SIG, much to my chagrin. I was preparing for a ride. My first lengthy ride was a diabetes ride, and I trained for that by going on NYCC rides. And it was great. I mean, the ride system, it's just such a wonderful organization to discover when you're sort of new to cycling and you've decided you want to do it regularly. I did the SIG in 2014, had a great experience. I've been a SIG leader since that time. I also assisted with Escape New York pretty much every year since maybe 15 or 16. Mostly hospitality, but have done some other jobs as well. And at the end of my first year as a coordinator, I mean, I'm just excited about working with this team. I mean, the people on the board, we don't always agree, but the one thing that's clear is that everyone is completely passionate about making the cycle club the best club it can be for everybody. Everybody's a volunteer. Everybody gives a lot of time. You know, we started up a diversity inclusion committee subcommittee over the year, and part of that work I think resulted in the survey that we have that Peter referred to earlier in the evening. You know, that I've also been involved in the discussions with that Jerry's been leading regarding the e-bikes. I want to echo that it's a developing topic. That's the one thing we acknowledged as we were discussing it, is that, you know, this is probably going to be our first shot at an e-bike policy, but not our last. Everyone has their own feelings about e-bikes, and some of them are rather strong. I'm sure, you know, I'm sure that they will also evolve. I mean, just the fact that now you can get a city bike that's an e-bike is changing the way that citizens of the city interact with bicycles and with e-bikes. They're sort of becoming more integrated in the biking thing. I'll admit it's very annoying when someone zooms by me on their e-bike and they're just like sort of tootling along. It's you know, it's sort of antithetical to why we go on these long rides. So we really do have to think through how to do it, and that's what your board is doing for you in our spare time. We're thinking through these issues and trying to make it as good as we can. Obviously, my job has changed a lot in the last year. I will say there were a heck of a lot less rides to approve, which is sad. I think we're all sad that we aren't all able to just sort of ride together freely. But the reality is, you know, cycling is still pretty safe on the spectrum of exercise activities. But I think that it's going to come back over this year. I think hopefully by the end of the year, things will start to return to normal, or at least we'll see the end of the tunnel. I just want to emphasize that my door is always open, my virtual door. There's there's email addresses for each of us and links on the page that where we're listed. Mine is just b-rides@nycc.org. And if you have any questions about leading a ride, if you have any feedback about anything that happens on a ride, if you need to get in touch with me for any reason, I'll always respond.
Let me interrupt and just reinforce that we need ride leaders all the time. Please volunteer. Call Colin, call me, call Linda. We'll get you set up. Call Mike if he's here for any ride.
Well, email me. Don't call me. I don't pick up any phone call that.
I beg your pardon.
If I don't know who it is, if you're not in my phone book, like most of us now, I think we're used to the endless spam, the calls that we get. But if you leave me a message on my phone, I will call you back. Let's put it that way.
Thanks, Colin. You've made it possible for me to get back into ride leading this year. I know it's been a heavy lift.
Yeah, Steve's one of my biggest customers.
Let's go to, yeah, like in terms of number of communications per ride listed. Let's go to Linda, who's coordinating our Sea Ride program and has been involved in the club longer than I think maybe anyone I know. Am I right?
The dinosaurs were still walking around.
Yeah, be careful, Steve.
Yeah.
You're not the only one.
So my first job in the club, actually, when I joined, 3 months after I joined, was I got tricked into becoming the Sea Rides coordinator. So this is my second time around. The president at the time said, "Oh, it's easy, don't worry about it." Of course, I knew nobody. So I would go to the club meetings and just walk over to anybody who was standing there, and mostly they were racers. They'd look at me. But, you know, most of them did eventually agree to lead a ride when the season was over. So for any of you racers or A riders or even fast B riders, you're always welcome. I've put together a guide on how to lead a C ride, and I've worked it out with some very fast A riders who helped me, you know, put it together, and some of the C-Sig people. So you'd have a little guide on some of the differences between a C and a B ride. And the C riders adore having A riders. They love the stories. So you would be worshiped. Now, as most of you know from the ride listings, Julie Blackburn did a fantastic job. She put together a series called Explore Your City, which is designed for C riders because it's so urban. You know, you really can't go very fast on that. And she goes to fascinating places. So it's always possible. A lot of those are in the ride library. And if you want to list it as a C ride, that would be just great. I do suggest you scout it first, because there are a lot of turns usually. And you have to make sure your favorite bathroom is still there. But they're wonderful and they're perfect for new riders. I'm putting together a series called Welcome New Members, because surprisingly to most of us who've been in the club for a long time, there are a lot of new members joining the club in October, November, December. Usually because of the cold, that eases off a bit until the spring. But I think what's going on, and I've talked to some of the new members, is that people are feeling very cooped up because of COVID, and they really want to get outside, and they'd like to be outside with somebody else, not just being out there alone. And so there actually is a demand for these. So if anybody would like to help out with those, it would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to keep them at a C13, although any new member is welcome. It doesn't have to be a C rider. But we will stick to that pace so that we can talk about what it's like in the club and how to be safe in traffic, that kind of thing. And those are fun also. And I may revive a series that I had and COVID killed it, which was the dumpling series, where the whole idea was to ride like 5 miles and then stuff your face with pounds of dumplings and get fat and have a good time. It was a winter series. And we went all over. Anything round basically was a dumpling, like ravioli or pierogi, you know. It just had to be round with something inside it. So we don't want to, most of us don't want to eat inside right now. It's just not very safe, especially in these little places that the dumpling rides went to. So maybe in the spring when it's nicer, we can revive that and try to eat outside. So if anybody has ideas or would like, you know, just a little bit of help, I would be willing to co-lead or give you some ideas that we're putting together. Jim and I have a few really good ones. Jim Finder have a few interesting ones coming up that I think everybody will like, not just sea riders, anybody. They're very odd, but I'll keep that a secret until we work it out. I think that's about it. Oh, by the way, I see Cynthia Gillum on this call. Cynthia, it would be so fabulous if you would volunteer. I would greatly appreciate it. Just thought I'd mention that. And, oh yeah, on the STS, what'd she say? That she's not gonna do it? Did she say something? I know you're there, I saw you.
She's giving you the thumbs up, so.
Put her on the
Yeah.
spot. Put her on the spot.
Not the finger up, right?
Sure, it's a thumb.
I'm in.
Anyway, we're going to see if we can do something about the STS. You know, maybe make it just a little bit shorter, maybe start it a little later. That would be a Sunday series for people who want to progressively ride longer miles and maybe slightly more challenging terrain, you know, starting off pretty flat and working our way up. So I'm hoping we'll be able to do that. But again, like the SIG, there are people who are just not very comfortable, and I can't blame them. You know, I think we have to all understand everyone's got their limits. But if we could get a little bit of that going, that would be great. Because I really do think we're getting lots of new members. Maybe some of the people on this call are new members, and they're always welcome. We always love having new members. So if any of you are new members and you have any questions about rides that might be appropriate, feel free to email me. I'd love to hear from you.
And what's the email address?
It's c-rides@nycc.org.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, or you could text me. But again, like Colin, I will not pick up the phone unless I recognize the phone number.
Right.
So.
Be one of those calls saying your vehicle, blah, 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 when you don't have one. Leora Rosenberg, our volunteer coordinator, I believe, was not able to make it tonight. And she know that. I don't see her on the call.
Steve, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Leora could not be here, but she has the most important thing to say. And that is that nothing happens in this club without volunteers. Volunteers are literally the source of everything you have heard about and everything that is going to go on this year. And if you can make yourself into one and give back to the club would be eternally grateful. We can do more and more wonderful things the more people we have doing them. Thank you for this PSA.
Amen. So that would lead us to Neil Weissman, who is our public relations director, and that title doesn't really capture all that Neil does for the club, has done for the club over the years. He's been on the board probably in virtually every role. So how is Neil interpreting his board role this year? Let's hear.
Hey, Steve. I want to share a screen, which is a sort of a survey that we did in July about when this was after we went on hiatus. We did not post any rides until I think from April through till June. So about a month in, we actually posted a survey of the people who had gone on rides about in the last 12 months. We got over 200 responses, which is an incredible response. We basically want to know, what are you doing? What are your new riding habits? And so in other words, what we discovered is that just 16% of people were riding in groups of 4 or more. You know, that's a remarkably low number. Everyone else was either riding by themselves, riding with a friend, or exercising at home, or just not riding. Of those that were riding, 60% would just ride out of New York and back. Less than 10% were using public transportation. And, you know, some people had cars, would drive out there. And 40% was only riding inside of New York City, basically Central Park and Prospect. We asked, what would it take you to come on club rides, you know, to return to them? And for half the members, the answer was literally nothing. There's nothing you could do to make me come on a club ride until there is a vaccine, and we are past this. And the other reasons, well, why aren't you coming on club rides? Was, you know, I'm at, you know, 40% are not in the city, 20% they've got work and family care, and you know, 30% said, look, I'm too out of shape. I really don't want to participate in club rides at this point. So for me, you know, the alarm bells went off, because if we're really dealing with a subset of members, like only 16% that are really ready and capable of doing listed rides, I was really terrified that our whole ride program would implode. So my objective for this past year has been to, you know, I'm saying I'm going to post 2 rides a week. you know, a hilly ride on Saturday and a flat ride on Sunday. You know, I've been going to New Jersey, you know, like New Jersey, but this is riding out of the city. You know, I've been doing trains for so long that this has been a real, you know, like bending my brain about how to do this and not repeat myself. But, you know, like New Jersey, Westchester, Long Island, you know, and then on the Sundays, I'm keeping it flat. You know, this is, you know, out to parks in Staten Island. So these are mostly city rides. You know, and it's been posting that and getting as many leaders as I could to clone the rides for different speed groups. And this is where, you know, and the hardest part about this is making sure that rest stops are open. I easily spend an hour on a Friday just calling up, making sure the parks is open or the restaurant will let us use the restroom if we, you know, order from them. And it's, you know, and any time I didn't do it, it got burnt, you know, I was burnt by it. I have a big shout out to all the leaders who have, you know, not just who, you know, on my rides, but any leader who's led this year, because I know what a bear it's been. And, you know, you're dealing with newbies who did not go through a SIG, you know, so I mean, if we, you know, if I'm as a board member, I'm going to say, you know, double incentive points for people who led this year. I will support that. You know, they've really held together. It's like one of the things we can do and the club has done. So this for 2021, I'm going to keep posting through the spring until hopefully the cavalry arrives, the SIGs and the STSs. I'm keeping my fingers for New Paltz and Greenport. And before I sign off, I am going to do an advocacy alert. Which is, this just got posted. I've been following this. I actually have been, you know, corresponding with State Senator May, and this is just got posted today about the Idaho Stop Bill. This basically allows, you know, you can treat a red light as a stop sign. Stop, look both ways, go through, and it lets you treat a stop sign as a yield sign, so you could roll through slowly. So I'm gonna, as soon as I stop sharing, I'm gonna put the links in the chats, and this is the actual bill. So when you go to look at the bill, you can immediately email yours, not Senator May, but your state senator, that you support this. And I think that's critically important. And I'm waiting for the assembly bill to come up, and I'm going to want to, you know, do outreach to other bike club, other bike clubs throughout the city and throughout the state to sign on to this. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I am going to do this to everyone in the meeting. And I should.
You're going to post it in the chat?
I think I just posted it in the chat.
There it is. Thank you so much, Neil. And I just want to underscore what you said. Your ride leading, which is something that most, all of us do throughout the year, in addition to any volunteer roles we take on in the board and otherwise. It's just great, you know, especially the way Neil allows people to plug into the rides that he designs. It's what got me going this year, so thanks again. I'm going to move on to our treasurer, Rob Gilbert. Are we solving?
Better unmute myself. I have no idea where I am in the hierarchy, but I do control the checkbook, so I think that means something. So I took over this job actually from Steve Musso maybe 3 or 4 years ago. He had already begun the process of moving our books and records from Quicken to QuickBooks. Quicken is really more for the individual, and QuickBooks is more for a corporation since it has regular financial statements. Before that, I was events coordinator for, I think, 2 years, plus maybe an extra holiday party in there, something like that. So, and then with Steve's had to resign for personal reasons. Unfortunately, I kind of stepped up to the plate. So I view my function really kind of as a support and oversee function. I'm not the one who's I'm not the one who spends the money, but obviously we have Alan and his team on E&Y as our biggest spender of money. The SIGs actually are not cheap. Believe it or not, it costs actually thousands of dollars for those orientations. Although maybe now for our 501c3, some of them will give us a little break on reserving those venues. Of course, that won't be an issue even in this current year. And then also monitoring the events. We have budgets for some of these things, for the holiday party, for the events that the events director manages, that Anna's now going to manage. For E&Y, that's more of its own thing. And obviously the net is going to our charities. So what we try to do, or what I try to do, is every month I actually give the board financials, which includes our balance sheets. It includes our year-to-date P&L by month, and also our expenses are actually transaction by transaction year-to-date. So everything is transparent out there. And so if there are any issues, people contact me, mainly in terms of just allocating costs to the wrong line item on our general ledger. What we also do is annually, every year, and this will happen soon, after I give Mark the data, we post the financials online on our website. So that gives our members an opportunity or opportunities to question any of our financials. And obviously with that, and the people here, they can just email me at treasurer@NYCC with any questions on our financials. And as Alan said, or as Peter actually said, we did make some money this year. We basically try to break even every year, and we've been very, very close every year. I think there was a number of years ago, actually, when Neil was president, we were kind of not doing too well. And then Neil and his team, I think we might have raised the dues and did some other cost cutting and just manage our financials a little bit better. So now we're pretty much in the red. I don't know if we have 160 or 180 in the bank.
We're in the black.
But, and I should know that number, but it's not a bad. It's not
you should
a bad
know those
estimate.
colors, red and black.
What?
Red means you're losing money.
Yeah.
You said we were in the red, but I think you misspoke.
Oh,
and
we're
that
in the
we're
black. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. I like red. Red's my favorite color, actually, so maybe I just looked at it that way.
You woke me up with that one.
There we go. I was just saying, the meeting's kind of going a little bit, so I just wanted to make sure, seeing if everyone on their toes. So again, we'll publish these probably next week or so. Mark is very busy, and when he has time, he'll be able to put those on the website. And just two little asides here. I don't know if Steve mentioned this, but we actually have a YouTube channel that all of his Zoom meetings, hopefully not this one though, are actually posted on the website, and they're actually fun to watch if you miss them. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Explore Your City, it's not really a moniker by definition. I just looked that up before I mentioned that. But the Explore Your City is actually trademarked by the club. Julie Blackburn owned it, and she transferred it to us. So we have that. We actually also, excuse me, we actually trademarked Escape New York this year. So, we had the movie Escape from New York. I think a few years ago we tried to do it, and they were not too happy about it. So we tried again, and it's an old enough movie, so really didn't care. And of course, NYCC and our logos are also trademarked. And all that stuff we actually keep with a separate trademark attorney. So, and he keeps track of that stuff, and the year before it's due, he reaches out to us and makes sure that that he actually would file the application to renew it. And all that's embedded. I mean, by us using these club-related emails, when someone else takes over the function, they take over the email. So the next treasurer, because I think we have many years for the next renewal of some of our trademark, they will get the reminder from our attorney. So although we do have switches in terms of these functions, we do have at least some way of keeping track of this stuff. And it's very good that we are now 501c3. I've never paid New York State sales tax on anything, so.
Secret safe.
There's a little
Yes.
thing at the end of your state tax return where you have to pay some or claim that you don't buy anything.
Yeah, and I think we've claimed, like last time I looked, we claimed like $6,000. I have no idea how I got that figure. So our revenue it's much bigger than that. So.
You don't need to make any admissions on this call.
Right.
No
Well,
admissions.
I don't think
What's the statute of limitations? And there's a guy named
I mean,
Cuomo who just signed on. He's coming out.
They're not. I'm sure they would know. I mean, they're not dumb. They send me emails on this stuff, and we pay a penalty 1 year for not paying sales tax. So, okay. Any questions? Just email me. I'll be happy to help you. Thank you.
I'd like to make one add-on to Steve's comment. Just so you all know, most of our important documents are now on our Google Drive. I think they're accessible to everybody in the club. Is that right, Peter? But we put the certificate of incorporation, the bylaws, our insurance policies, and documents of that sort on the Google Drive. So anybody needs to see them can look at them anytime they have trouble sleeping.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Jerry and Bob. It's good to know we have so much valuable intellectual property salted away. So two of our board members that I would turn to at this point, I don't believe they were able to make it to the call. Natan, our webmaster, and Mark, the content editor. So Natan, make sure that our all-important website keeps functioning, which is absolutely critical. You know, it's how we're able to offer so many different rides with different levels of skill, different speeds. The architecture of our web-based ride offering system is really very impressive compared to what most nonprofits can muster. And it takes some work to do that. And then, of course, there needs to be some content on those web pages, and that is what Mark is primarily responsible for. And I'm sorry they couldn't make it here tonight, but we do have our newest board member, Anna, who's with us. I'm just so excited because
hi. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for welcoming me. Yesterday, I met with Rob and I said something to him, and I'm gonna say the same thing because it's very meaningful. So originally, I am from Brazil. And then I moved to the UK in 2004, lived there for 14 years, and then I got transferred over to the US about 4 years ago. I work in finance, and I work traveling, you know, most of the time when COVID is not here, obviously. So I didn't really develop a full network in New York, and COVID struck. So my network was my work colleagues, you know, friends here and there, and out of a sudden everybody was out, you know, of my side. So I said, I need to think of some passions, and I started cycling around the city. I was everywhere. And then I almost got the city bike membership, and my friend said, you should get a bike. And then I did get a bike, and then I said, I need to join a legal club. And then I found the club via the Google. And I have to say that if someone asked me how my year went, I'm gonna have to tell them I had a wonderful year. Why? Because the club helped me to find loneliness. And essentially, it gave me an amazing hobby to do. It kept me fit. It essentially introduced me to a lot of people. And some of these people, I even spent Thanksgiving and Christmas with them. And a fun fact is my friend and the other friend gave the same gift to one of the friends, which was the pizza cutting tool from the Facebook that someone posted on the group. It also, you know, like it had a lot of fun things. Like we had a Thanksgiving ride, which was very lovely. So I could celebrate with the group to, you know, something that was new to me. It also, I think, opened up my horizons. You know, when you're in New York, you're very skeptical around the surroundings. Oh, New Jersey, oh, Staten Island, oh, upstate New York. So it really opened my horizons to see like the beauty that the country offers. People here, they want to go to Europe, and I was the opposite. I was here and I wanted to explore more. So I got that flavor, you know, and it was nice as well because through the club, I learned a lot of things like how to ride a bike properly. I'm still learning it, but Jerry was on my first ride. He was very friendly. I was carrying a backpack, almost a child, and he stayed with me, took the train back. And then the first time I actually rode with clip-on shoes, I felt about 4 times. Rob was there and he said, Anna, maybe you need to go to Central Park to practice some more. That was funny.
I've done that.
But and then coincidentally one day I saw him and Linda sitting down and having lunch, and I said, let me join the two of them. And then the invite came up, and I was very pleased because, you know, being part of this group represents more than riding to me, which is something that I love. Representing, being a part of the play, part of the city, you know, it represents like being friends and buddies with a great community that's trying to do something together to help people. A lot of people are not from here, and, you know, everybody, you know, it's kind of like isolated. It's a city that has so many people that, yeah, people get isolated. And I hope if each of you know the importance that you have on each other's life, especially in the moment like that, when support, friendship, and love for the same cause join us together. So I am very extrovert, so I think they spot the right person to the right role. I love events. I do a lot of it on my job. And then essentially you know, I'm just starting, but I feel free to recommend some events that you wanted to see. Obviously, a lot is going to be virtual, but we are open to suggestions on events at nycc.org. I've been told the most important event of the year happens in December when we have a big party. So hopefully by then we will have everything open, and we'll be able to kind of get together in person and, you know, and know each other, or really see that this difficult moment was just a test and we survived. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Anna. And yeah, I hope we get to do some non-virtual special events with you at the helm this year, because I'm getting a little bit tired of all the virtual events. Aren't we all? Well, that fit perfectly. I'm glad that we had as many people who couldn't show up as did. And I'm glad that those who were here were able to expand to fill the vacuum. That was perfect.
Steve?
Yeah?
Steve, can I say something? You were very modest about your programs, but I just want to say, I think your programs have been superb. They have. They've been very interesting.
Hear, hear.
You know, we're stuck on Zoom, but they have been very interesting. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I don't know if I'm going to be able to equal this year what I did last, but I'll try. Thank you. It's inspiring.
All right, I was just going to say, bring everybody back to give us an update because they were all so interesting. What have they been doing for a year? Make it easy on yourself.
A lot of them are just trying to raise money because they're at the helm of nonprofits that are having a hard time weathering the storm. You know, it's a lot easier for NYCC, frankly, as a nonprofit that's all volunteer, to be able to handle the pandemic. But an organization with staff, as many of us know, if we have small businesses or even if we're part of larger businesses, it's just really, really hard. Regrets for whoever didn't make it or had to, you know, shut down or is looking at something new. Best wishes and best luck for your new endeavors for the new year. The Bike Club is here and it's going on, and let's all raise a glass and say, I hope to be at an in-person SIG, an in-person Escape New York, or an in-person end of the year holiday party hosted by Anna in 2021.
Yeah.
Cheers. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.